All right, so get ready because today we're going to be diving into some seriously mind-bending stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Ever heard of a behavioral sink?
I have.
No, it's not about your kitchen drain.
Right.
This is about what happens when overpopulation pushes a society well over the edge.
Yeah.
We're talking societal collapse, folks.
Yeah, it's a fascinating and somewhat unsettling area of study.
Yeah.
For sure.
It is. And the guy who really dug into this was John B. Calhoun,
Right.
an ethologist who spent his career studying this in rodents.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before you think rats boring, this gets really interesting, I promise.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about behavior, social structures, and what crowding could mean for us humans.
Yeah, Calhoun's work is undeniably thought-provoking.
It is.
Particularly his creation of what he called rat utopias. Imagine controlled environments where rats had everything they could possibly need.
Exactly.
Huh.
Starting in the 1950s, he built these elaborate cages, like one that was 10 by 14 feet, designed to comfortably house a dozen rats.
Right.
But the catch in the catch, unlimited food, water, nesting materials, a true rat paradise.
A paradise for rats.
And of course, he let the population explode.
And that's where we see this concept of the behavioral sink in action. Despite having everything they needed, the rat society started to unravel. They began exhibiting unusual behaviors, crowding together even when there was plenty of space.
Okay, so it wasn't just about being physically crammed with something deeper.
Right. The crowding seemed to trigger a sort of social breakdown. Calhoun observed that the rats, over time, began associating feeding with the presence of other rats.
Oh, interesting.
This led to extreme crowding around food sources, disrupting their established social structures, and even their ability to care for their young.
Wow, so imagine being in a huge mansion, but everyone's still crammed into the kitchen fighting over snacks.
It's an interesting analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights the idea that social density, the number of interactions and the quality of those interactions, can have a profound impact on behavior, even more so than just physical space.
Now fast forward to the late 1960s, Calhoun creates his most famous experiment, Universe 25, a massive mouse habitat designed to support thousands of mice, a true mouse metropolis.
This habitat had everything. Food, water, nesting materials, multiple levels, and it was built to accommodate up to 4,000 mice.
Wow.
It was truly the ultimate mouse utopia.
But even with all this space, things took a dark turn.
Yeah.
The population peaked at 2,200, and then, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty.
The behaviors observed were even more disturbing than in the earlier rat experiments. Aggression, neglect of young, abnormal sexual behavior, even cannibalism.
Oh my gosh.
It was a stark illustration of a complete societal collapse.
Yikes. So even in this mouse paradise, they couldn't escape the behavioral sink.
It seems that way. Calhoun's work suggests that when social structures break down and essential behaviors are disrupted, even a seemingly perfect environment can't prevent a decline. And that's where things get really interesting, because Calhoun saw this as a potential warning for humankind. He believed that increasing urbanization and population density could lead to similar breakdowns in human society.
Hold on, though. I bet some of you are thinking, we're not mice. We have laws, complex social structures, and Netflix.
Right.
Surely we're smarter than to fall into a behavioral sink.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. It's easy to dismiss these experiments as just rodent behavior, but that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Are we humans truly that different?
Well, I'd like to think so. But it's true that we're also seeing rising urban populations and increasing density in many cities. So is this behavioral sink something we should actually be worried about?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? While we might not be destined for cannibalism and societal collapse, Calhoun's work does raise some crucial questions about the impact of density, specifically social density.
Okay, remind me again, how is social density different from just being packed like sardines on the subway?
Think of it this way. You could be in a crowded room, but if you're not interacting with anyone, not forming meaningful connections, you're experiencing low social density. It's not just about physical space, but the quality and quantity of your social interactions. And Calhoun believed that the breakdown of those social structures, the inability to form stable bonds and engage in meaningful ways, was a key factor in the decline of his rodent populations.
So even if you're in a big city with tons of people around you, you can still feel isolated if those connections are missing.
Exactly. And that isolation, that lack of meaningful engagement, can be just as detrimental as physical overcrowding. In fact, some psychologists argue that it's a major contributor to stress, anxiety, and even depression in urban environments.
Now I'm starting to see why this is relevant to us humans. It's not just about cramming more people into a city, it's about creating environments where people can connect and thrive.
Precisely. And that's where Calhoun's work gets really interesting. It's not just a dystopian warning, It's also a call to action for how we design and manage our growing cities.
But haven't there been studies with humans that showed crowding doesn't have these negative effects?
You're likely thinking about the work of psychologist Jonathan Friedman. He conducted experiments in the 1970s where he put people in crowded situations, and guess what? He didn't see the same behavioral breakdowns that Calhoun observed.
So does that debunk Calhoun's whole theory?
Not necessarily. Friedman's research highlighted a crucial point. He found that how we perceive and experience crowding matters. If people feel in control, if they have access to personal space and privacy when needed, and if they have opportunities for positive social interaction, they can adapt and thrive even in dense environments.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just about the number of bodies in a space. It's about the design of that space and the opportunities it provides for meaningful social interaction.
Right, and this is where things get really exciting because it means we can actually learn from Calhoun's work to design better cities, cities that avoid those behavioral sink pitfalls.
So what's the secret sauce? How do we design cities that foster connection and well-being, even with growing populations?
That's what we'll unpack in the next part of our deep dive. Because it's not just about avoiding overcrowding, it's about creating spaces and policies that promote those vital social connections that make us human.
All right, listeners, get ready to put on your urban planning hats, because we're about to explore how to build cities that are not just efficient, but truly human-centered. See you in part 3. Welcome back to our deep dive into the behavioral sink. We've gone from unsettling mouse experiments to the complexities of social density in human societies. Now, the big question, what does all this mean for the future of our cities?
That's the challenge and the opportunity, isn't it? We know urbanization isn't slowing down. Cities are growing denser by the day. So how do we design and manage them in a way that avoids the pitfalls of the behavioral sink?
Yeah, that's the question I'm grappling with. I mean, on one hand, I love the energy and diversity of cities, but I also get a little claustrophobic thinking about everyone being packed in like sardines.
I think that's a tension many of us feel. And it gets to the heart of the matter. It's not just about avoiding overcrowding. It's about creating cities that foster well-being, connection, and sense of belonging, even amidst the hustle and bustle.
Okay, so less rat utopia, more human utopia, right? But how do we actually do that?
Calhoun's work, as unsettling as it is, offers some valuable clues. Remember how the breakdown of social structures was a key factor in the decline of his rodent populations? Well, that tells us that in human cities, we need to prioritize spaces and policies that promote positive social interaction.
So it's not just about building more apartments and office buildings.
Exactly. It's about creating a diversity of spaces within our cities, a mix of residential, commercial, and public areas that cater to a range of needs and activities. Think parks, plazas, community gardens, libraries, cultural institutions, places where people can connect, relax, and engage in meaningful ways.
This makes me think about those articles about third places. Those spaces that are neither home nor work, but provide a sense of community, like your local coffee shop or even a park bench where you always see the same group of people chatting.
That's a great example. Fostering these kinds of third places is crucial for creating vibrant, human-centered cities. They provide those vital social connections that can offset the potential isolation of urban life.
So it's about designing cities that encourage interaction and a sense of belonging, not just accommodate a growing population.
Oh, precisely. And that intentionality extends beyond physical spaces. We also need policies that promote social cohesion, things like affordable housing initiatives, community policing strategies, and programs that support local businesses and cultural events.
So it's a multifaceted approach. We need thoughtful urban design supportive policies and a real focus on fostering those all-important social connections. It sounds like a lot of work.
It is. But it's also an incredible opportunity to shape the future of our cities in a way that prioritizes human well-being. And the payoff cities that are not just efficient and functional, but also truly vibrant and livable.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, to say the least. We started with dystopian rat experiments and ended up with a roadmap for building better cities.
And that's the beauty of it. Understanding the potential pitfalls, as highlighted by Calhoun's work, helps us appreciate the importance of designing urban environments that support human connection and flourishing.
So what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I'd say the future of our cities isn't predetermined. We have the power to shape them in ways that foster connection, creativity, and a sense of belonging. It's a challenge, no doubt, but it's also an incredible opportunity to build a future where cities are not just places we live, but places where we truly thrive.
And that's a future I think we can all get behind. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another exploration of the fascinating world.